Talk to me a little bit about what your earliest memory is in growing up in Fasalto, Italy.
You mean from 1 year old on?
Well, you know what? Mine, I was only 3, so if you were
Yeah.
1, that's pretty amazing.
Probably the one that I remember the most when I was very little, just walking, maybe talk about year and a half, 2 years old, is that we had probably 25 sheep, and about half of them, they need to be milked every morning. So we would get 1 sheep at a time. The older brother would bring it from the barn into a little spot where my mom had the little bucket to milk him. And I was next to my older brother Theodore, holding the ears. The sheep's ear, so it would stay still because my mom would, milk it.
At that young, you were trying to participate.
Right.
One thing that I was curious about, and this is kind of well, it's not off topic of the book. As a hair care expert for so long, what are some of the most disappointing trends that you've seen in the past few decades?
Well, I wouldn't say disappointed is the basic. It's like if you took a clothes, for example, because usually clothes comes first, the hair follows the clothes. A good basic suit and tie, white shirt has been in forever, and it will still be forever. Then we have the so-called the new trends. They come in and they come and go. So it's same with the hairstyle. Some of the real wild look, orange, this, kind of thing, which people didn't really look that good, but they thought that's the style we need to have it. So I would say some of the really wild look that you probably couldn't even get a decent job, professional job, because they wouldn't hire you because, the way your hair was. But we did it anyway. We do what the client wants.
Now, I'm curious about your experiences working with David. And this has been a long process, 4 or 5 years, 5 years?
5 years with Bob.
Okay, well, there had to be some interesting moments working together because I understand what it's like working so closely on a project. Experiences that are just slap happy hilarity. I need to hear this.
Let me go first with one.
Uh-oh.
Okay. I've been helping an older gentleman with his wife who has Alzheimer's at night, during the night. So I sleep in fits, not very well. And we had a deadline to get this book edited and the cover designed and the back copy put together and the illustrations done and the photograph shot, all of them having to come together at the same time. And I got into this mental state where I was so fatigued that I wasn't really thinking right. And at the most critical moment in the whole process, I was coming over to read a little bit more to do the edit. And I drive all the way over here, I come in the door, and he goes, "Where's the book?" I forgot the book. And I stood, and I was frozen in the hallway, and I was just I was blinking, and I was like trying to think what to do. He goes, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I have my computer." And at first I thought, well, I'll use the computer, but you can't write on the computer to fix things. So I said, "I'm going to go home and get the book." Well, you can imagine my drive home, the kind of words that were being said in the car. I come back and I walk in the door. He goes, "Calm down." He goes, "Calm down. It's going to be okay. We got the meal all ready to go." But to be it was just a horrible deadline situation. And to drive all the way over here and bang, no book. That was like the hardest thing that I went through with this. This was like 4 days ago. What do you got? What's your...
You mean the stressful one?
Yeah, that was... Well, whatever. She's asking for what? You want
I
some-
was asking hilarity.
Hilarity.
But there's,
Oh,
the
hilarity.
standout moment.
Well, there was a
standout
That's a
moment.
standout moment.
Probably this could be called as a stand-up moment, even though it was a little bit aggravating. So I was to have a picture taken for the book. And we're supposed to go to the guy that he knew it, Jim.
Jim Vaughn, one of the
He
nation's
says-
best photographers.
So about a week before, he says, bring 4 or 5 out of fit. So I go to the trouble to ask my brother, because we wear the same size suit. He was in suit business, so he does a little sharp suit. And he's very meticulous. So
This is such an unfair story.
So he writes.
Equal time.
He irons everything and said, come back, I pick it up tonight. So tonight, David, that night, David came to do a session, still working on the book. And I asked him again, he says, no, you just need turtleneck, black turtleneck.
But that's because Jim said, just have him bring a turtleneck. But I'm going to get blamed in this story. Keep going.
I go,
All right, watch.
now wait a minute. He said, 5 out of fit. Okay, so I called my brother, hey, never mind. I'm not going to come and get the suits. And so the next morning, I talked to him again. I said, so it's just a turtleneck, black turtleneck. He says, well, you can bring 3 or 4 or 5 different just in case. And I thought, which one is it? Is it just a turtleneck or this? So I'm getting a little bit. So
He was more than a little bit.
and I thought,
It was like a
well,
lot.
it's not going to
He was
fit.
just upset. He was trying to get mad. It
It's
was
not-
the angry Guido
It's
coming
not
out.
going to fit in his car. So I put everything in my car, and plus we're supposed to take a bunch of pictures from portraits from here to take it to the studio for the fellow to put it in the book. So I have everything loaded in my car. He comes, okay, you ready? I says, yeah, I wouldn't follow me. No, you're going with me.
I said we were going to drive together.
I said,
In my car. I didn't say in my car. I said we're going to drive together. So he was like
Where are we
surprised.
gonna-
We're going to drive together.
What are we going to put to the 3 or 4? I had, 3 different, clothes to wear in case. It depends what the photographer wants. He said, in my trunk. There's no room in his trunk. I said, well, we could put the pictures in the back seat, which he keeps the dog there in the back seat.
Well, look, this is crazy, okay? Because this is the truth of the story. There was something about being photographed that put him into a tiz. I can't really tell you what it was. All I can say is that when the word, we're going to have a photograph shot, he called me and he starts grilling me with this question after question. What do you want me to wear? Well, just a turtleneck's fine and some other clothing. Like what? Well, you pick, you'll have some options. He called me again. Well, what kind of clothing? What color are you going to wear? What difference does that make with the color I'm going to wear? So he goes on and on and on, and I'm like, I finally said, I don't have anything more to add about what to do on this photograph. He was asking me question after question, the shoes, the belt, if I got to wear a jacket. And I finally said, I really don't have anything else to say. Just bring 5 things, options, just options, okay? But he wanted specifics. Then he really lost it when I got here in the car. And when I told him we were going to drive in my car, you'd think I had thrown like a bucket of oatmeal on his face.
I said-
He was so upset
Well,
that
he
he
was
had.
prepared.
We got him in the
I
trunk.
said, this is
3 or
very
5 hours.
irritating me. I said, which one is it? The turtleneck? Oh, 3 or 4 of these.
But you
He
need to
even
understand-
apologized the next day.
Did
He had been so mad that he finally said yesterday, I'm sorry but it was something about that photographic session that somehow
And I
drove
had to
him nuts.
And I had to recollect myself because I figured I go there, I'm supposed to smile, right?
So, okay, but then we need to know which outfit did you go with for the
He
photograph?
didn't want any, just a turtleneck, black turtleneck.
The turtleneck, but you know what? I have a feeling that David and Jim have an affinity for turtlenecks. I'm just going out on a limb and I'm going to say that.
I don't wear them.
I've seen you in them in
I
photographs.
don't wear them.
No, I wear them.
I don't wash them anymore. They're a little bit loose around my neck. I'm not a turtleneck guy. I don't know where that came from. I'm not a turtleneck guy. Now, I was a turtleneck guy, but I'm not anymore.
I am.
You're a
Turtleneck.
turtleneck guy.
Yeah.
But
So
if you
got-
want to
No
upset
understand.
him, tell him you want to take his picture. You want to send him into a tiz, call him
No,
and tell
I-
him you're bringing over a camera and you're going to be taking a picture and you're going to see the angry Guido. That's Guido's hate. Okay, you got Guido's love on the one side.
No.
Let's talk about the name of the book. Okay,
The book,
the name's. Tell him about the name of the book.
Guido's Love. Should I tell that?
Tell her the whole story. Anything
the
you
whole
want to tell.
story? He came with the name Guido's Love. I said, I don't know about that. People are going to think it's a love story. No, it's a good title. People, no, it's good. So I let it go, but I keep thinking we need to add something.
You said you let it go, but you kept on thinking about it, so you
Yeah,
didn't let
I
it go.
kept thinking-
See,
I mean,
this
I
is the
let it
way
go
it really
because
works in the human mind.
I-
He says, I let it go, but he didn't let it go.
Well,
Okay, he's still grabbing onto
I
that.
let it go. I figure until the book is done, we are going to change this.
That's the real attitude.
So-
We are going to change this.
So
Okay, that's the real
I
attitude.
told my daughter to do the computer thing, so we came up with this, cover for the book. My picture in the middle with scissors, and around says stories of happy hairdresser, and life is good, and in Italy to USA. I was so excited to show it today when it came for a session. I said, "What do you think of the cover of the book?" He goes, "Oh."
It's best that I not speak.
There are some really funny moments in the story. There are little jokes, little anecdotes, but one of the things that stands out to me that was maybe hilarious isn't even the word, was this story about you taking the job in Brighton, England. I felt like I was there, which is
We should have called it The Big Lie. That should have been the name of that
was, but
chapter,
I
The Big
think
Lie.
I have to believe that everybody has, even if it's a small moment like that, where they get in.
Well, tell
get
the
in
audience
over
what's
their
going on. He had
head.
no background in cooking whatsoever. He picks up a piece of trash off the street in Rome or somewhere, and he sends
No,
in
it was
this
a newspaper.
or a newspaper.
Trash.
He writes out that he's worked in every famous restaurant in Italy, every name. Sends it to England as a joke on a bet for like beer.
Right.
Okay, and then they're ringing the bell, bang, bang, in the middle of the day to stop work because he gets the job. Okay, now I'm just giving the people the context of what this is all about. So it was a lie. He had no cooking experience. Not only did he not have any cooking experience, he didn't have any heating experience. He had never warmed a meal. He hadn't even touched a kitchen utensil. He had never washed a
But
dish
that's
in
the
his entire
Italian-
life. He had
Oh.
never washed a pot. He had none, zero, zip. And you know what he did? When he got the job and he got there, okay? And they say that he's thinking, what am I going to do if they ask me a question? He just says, tell me how you want it done, and I do it the way you want. And they were so sick of people bragging about their talent that they just told him how to do the job. He never...
So I want to know what that first day was like.
Well, it was like this. We got there, I remember for was now. We got there on Thursday. The owner came and pick us at the train station because after we got off the boat, we took a train. When I say we, I met 3 or 4 other people on the way that they were going to work for the same restaurant, except they were 3 brothers. Each one had 2 restaurants. So I was going to one of them, and they were going to a different one. But they were concerned, and they were cooks. Well, they were going to do, and they spoke some English, and I didn't speak it. So anyway, the owner was Italian, so he spoke Italian. He says, well, I'm sure you're really tired with the trip and everything, so you start Monday. But the rooms are upstairs, above the restaurant to sleep and everything. And you come down just to kind of get used to the place, familiar with the place, and you start on a Monday. I thought, cool. So the rest of them, that they were other people who worked there sleeping, they would sleep late. And I would get up early and just watch everything they did, the other chefs. So, cool, man, I can do this. I can fry, hamburgers.
No experience, but brilliant. Okay, so he has that advantage. He's like brilliant.
And so I said, oh.
Folks, you can get away with anything in
Well-
life. You want to be a nuclear scientist, pretend that you know something about nuclear science and get the job. Just tell them you've read some magazines.
The good thing there were some other Italians there.
Yeah.
As a cooks. So as a matter of fact, the head chef was Italian.
Paisan.
But I didn't want him to know that I didn't know how to cook. I said,
How did you work around that? That's the
I
thing.
just said, this is how you guys do this. I'll make sure I just do it.
Yeah. This is how you put water in a pot. This is how you open a refrigerator door. That's really good,
Well, the part that was really interesting because at first, the first year of the 6 months, the steaks, we were getting big slabs of meat, and then we cut our own. It's okay, 2 steaks, get the thing and cut the steak. And I said, man, you're making it too big. The owner's going to be upset. You know, the size of it.
Right.
Because they were pre-cut. So there was probably, I had to get used to it, not to give it too much and not too little, to cut it just right.
How did you manage to learn how to cook?
I just watched them doing. I said, it's not that difficult. But can I tell you a quick story?
Yes, absolutely.
If you give me $2.
That was the funniest thing I have ever seen. I never forgot. So I'm working in the evening, and there's an English chef. At that time, I wasn't the head chef. After the second year, I was. So he's the top guy.
Second year, you're head chef?
Right. When I worked alone.
Okay.
You know, like I'm just me and another guy or something like that. So, but he was very feisty because this place was busy. I mean, people were lined up at the door because it was right on the beach, like 1 block from the beach. So he's all mad at all this work. So the waiters had brought 1 steak back. What's wrong with it? Too tough. Oh, yeah? Hey, Guido, watch this. So he bent down behind there so they wouldn't see us. He goes, bing, bing, bing,
No.
bing, bing, under the shoes. He said, "You're too tough, man, too tough, man." Dip her in the oil where we were frying the fish. He puts her on the grill just like, shh. He give it back. He says, watch this. He goes, I thought,
Why you never send your food back to the restaurant? You laugh.
So it's too tough, and he slaps it on his
And
shoe,
then-
throws it in the fryer, and throws it back on the plate.
Can we say just one more, which is a
Yeah.
really crazy
You
story?
got some good ones.
So-
That's what we're here for.
This time I'm working by myself. But I spoke a little bit more English. And we about ready to close. And this big man, tall, like 6'6", comes in. He says, "Oh, steak?" Okay. And that night the manager was there. I go downstairs where we had to go down. There was only 1 steak left. It was almost greenish. You know, then in another refrigerator. So I said, "Hey, is she good?" "Yeah, it's okay." The manager said, "You know, dip it in oil and then cook it." But I really was concerned. So I cooked the steak. They give it to him. He's eat. All of a sudden, he finished the eat. We're about ready to close. He comes by the cash register. He stands over there like that. He goes, "Can I talk to the chef?" And I thought, oh man, he's gone. So we had this big long knives that cut the steaks. I came from the back, but I'm curious, just in case. He goes, "You know, I don't know how much you getting paid, but I sure would say you need a raise. I have to say that's the best damn steak I have ever ate." "Okay, see you later." I
Well
could not
aged.
believe-
Well aged. Well aged beef.
I mean, to me, we were the Italians are always fresh.
Right.
And then I learned that the English people, I actually a lot of people liked aged meat.
Oh, well, I guess it was well aged. Which brings me, you know, so they make you head chef after 2 years. What would you say were your signature dishes then?
Well, this place didn't have like per se gourmet, so it was basically hamburger was the biggest seller, and fish fry. But we did like the one that is really I had to get used to it. Over here, you get a hamburger like it's with the buns and pretty much French fry. Over there, a meal, a lot of them would get a meal. Okay, it was a hamburger, which is hamburger patty, peas, tomato, and maybe some mushroom. So that's a meal. Opposed to over here, you would get a steak or something like that. But a lot of chickens.
What's with the peas? I've noticed that through the, just
They
an
like
odd
that. But French fries, a lot of them.
British French fries and peas. It's a British thing. How do you describe your favorite meal?
Us was the either a steak or the pasta. But that particular restaurant, we didn't do pasta, almost none. So for ourselves, at one point in the middle of the summer, it was 4 or 5 of us Italian then. And when after the lunch, it to slow down a little bit, we could cook this big ball of pasta, and we would eat like this big ball. And that reminds me of another story. A guy came and saw us eating this. Says, "What's that?" Spaghetti. This is like a 50-year-old person.
Mm-hmm.
Says, "Really? Where do you get those?" And I thought, to be fine, I said, "Oh, those you pick from the trees." I thought he'd take it as a joke, right? The owner of the restaurant comes in the afternoon and he says, "Did you tell this one guy that picked spaghetti off the tree?" He says, "Well, yeah, I was joking." He says, "I golf with him." He says, "Oh, now I know where to get your pasta." I says, "Where?" It's off the tree. He says, "I laughed my head off." I guess he had never eaten spaghetti before.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. One of the things that I was very impressed with in your book is your view on parenting, and you cover a lot of bases there. But I'm interested, what were some of your biggest challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced as a parent, especially raising children here in America versus back in Italy?
The biggest challenge, definitely, since we moved to where we live now, it's more affluent area. And basically, here's this little hairdresser guy moving into a affluent area where the doctors and people make a lot of money. So the kids, they're used to have everything. So natural, my kids said, "Oh, you know, they have this, they have that, they have a car. Oh, I want to go on vacation. I want me to go with them." And so that was the biggest thing to try to tell them. We don't make that kind of money, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't do it. But that was probably the toughest thing, to make them understand. But little by little, they got it. But I think it was Rita who, she can talk to anybody. She was the best friend of all these, rich other kids. So finally one time he says, "You know what, Rita? If you think it's so much better and you wish you had the parents that had the money to do that, why don't you ask them if they want to talk to you?" She goes, "Oh, no, I don't want I love you, I don't want that." But the one thing, if I can just say that, is we used to go to the Mass at New Year's Eve. No, Christmas Eve, sorry. Us all together and stuff. And a couple of her friends said, "Oh, that's so nice. I wish my parents would be home. I could do something like that." And so then she started coming with us. 2 of the girls were coming with us too. So it's quite a...
That really says something.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've been impressed with about you, is just the way that you made opportunities for people to spend time with your family. You sought that out. You worked it out.
Well, I worked for a large company for 10 years. They had like 800 salons, which is, in the book, there's stories about that. And then I thought, you booked full, how many more people can you do? So I thought, I need to open up my own place. In the mind that I have of people working for me, plus what I do, plus all what, they bring in. I did that for 10 years. It was good, make like more money, but I didn't think it was worth the sacrifice and the responsibility. Mm-hmm. I personally enjoy more cutting hair, serving people, than managing and this one doesn't show up, that kind of thing. So finally I told my wife, says, "You know what, I've been getting tired around this business like this. I'm going to find a place somewhere where I could run my own little business. For I had a Shumble girl for years, the helper and all that. I said, get rid of everybody. Just do my own little shop attached to my home. Took a while, but we keep, I keep looking. This is, I enjoyed all of it because I had the other things out of my mind, like, oh, I wish I did the big shop, this and that. So that was done. But the last 30 years, here at home, that has been the best. It's been just, I can't think of any other thing that I would want to do. I mean, I just leave from home, shop, come back home, watch the kids go to school, come back from school. It's been great.
Well, you're so good with people. That's the thing that in the book, that's the story that you tell about your cousin, Donato.
Mm-hmm.
And I see in the life lessons that you talk about being willing to listen, being willing to let other people win, that whole attitude. So when David talks about this anger issues, that's not something, I mean, we're all human, but what I'm left with is that there's this, not simply tolerance, but accepting people for who they are. And I love the one story that you tell, and I think it was it about the hillbilly? Was that the one?
Yeah.
The screen and
Where
the
you can learn something
air
from
blower.
anyone.
Oh, I never forgot that. I was getting so irritated. I said, man, this machine is still good. It can't be that cannot be fixed. Then out of the blue, I saw the sign, we're working on a lawnmower. I said, well, I'll just stop. He looks at it. Yeah, it's just this little screen. Pulls it out. He started to work. I thought, I can't believe this. So I want to pay him. Don't worry about it. I left him $5.
But to me, then that speaks about you, too. That you still, there's value in what he did. So you're reinforcing that,
Absolutely.
too.
I learned way back then when I was little, I don't take anybody for granted just because of the way they dress, the way they look. I can remember when I had the big salon, we'd go to hair shows. The whole group was 9 or 10 of us, and some of them, which was my less busy hairdressers, they would go to the bar. I don't like that guy. He's a ponytail. He's from California. And I said, if you can learn one little thing that maybe speed up your haircut, even if it's not any better, but you can do in 15 minutes instead of 20, you know how much that is worth? I said, don't look at how he looks. He doesn't have to look. I remember one time, the guy says, you still have the hair dryers at home? I said, no, get rid of them. Get rid of them. No, it's just a blow dry now. I said, you don't have to do what he says because you have to go back to where you work. What is your community? The customers, you still have half of the customers, 50%, they still want to sit under the dry. So don't take that advice. But take the advice of how you can speed up a haircut or something like that. I learn always for anybody. And my philosophy is throw out the bad, keep the good.
I like that. And one last question. I'm just curious because it's such a huge cultural shift, and you talk about this in the book. About the things that you do like about America, the things that you found very, somewhat difficult. But what do you miss most about Italy?
I would say probably my relatives, because I still have a lot of relatives there. I like the food and the clothing and all that. But if I had to basically make a living on a farm or hard jobs and stuff like that, I wouldn't want to live there. I mean, a lot of times people ask me, would you want to move back over there? I said, no. But one thing that really stands up, especially when I first started working with my really broken English and all that, and it says, oh, so now how could you leave Italy, like Rome, and come to Akron, Ohio? I just don't get it. So my answer was, okay, wrong. They have this beautiful restaurant and stuff, but I can't afford to go there. So what's the big deal? What does it do for me? You know, so I always look, yeah, there are good things. There are cars, but I can't buy one. So what does it do for me? So I got to look like where I can do it. You know, can't just look what other people have.
Right. I like what you say about the opportunities that you have here.
Right. But one of the really cute things, if I could add that, is talking about people, wealthy people and stuff. My two daughters are only 14 months apart. So when they go to school, the first daughter, she was on the court and she was the beauty queen. So actually the rich parents, they thought, man, this gal would, you know, with her dress parent, she's the beauty queen of this big school. Well, you know, have the girl walk your daughter down the field and all that. You know, I was late because I had to do my last customer. Well, you didn't come here for the rehearsal. I said, don't worry, I'll just walk behind you. But what was more interesting, the following year, my other daughter was on the court. And so the previous queen is going to crown the queen for the next year. So my older daughter crowned her sister. That was something really that has never happened to Revere School, which is a big school. And I remember one of the parent of one of the galleys says, hey Guido, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. He said, you don't have any more daughters, do you? I said, am I going to adopt one?
You have some winners, right?
But it's just to show that other kids didn't care, you know, what house you have. They just went by how good you are as a person.
That's right.
I always treat people, you know, sometimes, not to change the subject to people about racist, this and that. It says, we have no choice what color we were born.
That's right.
But we do have a choice how we treat people and what we do with our lives.
Yes, we do.
So that's our choice. The coloring and how tall and how short, we have no choice. You're born like that. You can't change that.
See, I love that. That's the kind of thinking that just really drew me into the book.
And most people, if you give them a chance, are nice. I got asked hundreds of times, says, well, how can you stand a woman's all day? And this is a big headache. And I'm thinking, man, I'm having a ball every day. Because especially after you get to know people and they come back, you know, their families and get to know the kids and so forth. I have families that I was doing the mother when she was in the high school. Now I'm doing the grandkids in high school. Oh, gee, now I'm telling my age.
You can't get away with it.
So I mean, it's just, I couldn't think of any other profession really that I would probably enjoy more.
Well, that's interesting too, because you talk about, or I think David had mentioned too, that there are few professions where you really get to know people so intimately. They welcome you into their lives, and they do. When you say that they become family, they are your family.
Yeah. I mean, they're so interested to see pictures of my grandkids. I mean, they look every time if there's one more, you know, picture on the counter there. So that tells you that they don't just say, oh, okay, he's cute or something like that. They're just genuinely interested to it. So that's great.
Well, even the story about the gentleman that was getting married for the third time, they're asking you for advice because they understand that there is this, you know, old world wisdom or just practical common sense that so many of us are lacking, and he comes to you and asks you, and it, you know, you pretty much just told it like it is.
I would say what's really surprises me the most still is, and I'm not embarrassed to say, I only have a 5th grade school. I didn't have a chance to go to college or anything. And to think that school teachers and that professional people, I'm telling you, like doctors and psychologists they ask me to try to solve the problem they have or help them. I really said, you mean I'm really that good? But it's just, I guess I have a lot of common sense probably through hard work and dealing with. But I think also dealing with people for 50-some years, you know, talking about practically 1,000 people, you learn from conversing with them.
One of the things, and you touched on this when I strolled in here, Guido mentioned that you were very impressed with the way that David was able to capture just your whole childhood. And one of the things that I found most impressive and really just captivating is the way that the voice of Guido moved and developed as you grew and aged. Talk to me about how you were able to do that.
Well, when talking about Guido, I always would start with another point, which I'll do first and then answer your question. He was my hairdresser, you know, for many, many years. We've known each other maybe 35 years. And he kept on bothering me about writing this book. I mean, every time I'd come over here, we ought to do a book, we ought to do a book. I mean, I would just say, no, I write during the day. I'm not going to do it on the weekends. I'm not going to do it at night. I'm not going to do it. 15 years pounding on me, okay? But the point is that I kind of got clarity. You know, the whole point is, why would you write a book like this? I mean, because, you know, it's very time-consuming. It's 5 years now. I've been working on this book almost 24 hours a day now for 5 days, just trying to get it finished. I mean, in the sense of things to do. It's crazy. But the point is that it all starts from the idea that he knows some stuff we don't. Mm-hmm. He's got some knowledge about how to love. You know, I have these friends and they talk to me about love, and most of the time it's like how to have sex with girls. I mean, that's what it's really about for a lot of them, you know. But, you know, in other words, that's what they talk about, you know, something like that. But maybe then there's other friends of mine who talk about love. They talk about making a woman feel loved, you see? And so I realized that there was this repository of information that was of great value to people all over the world if we could communicate it. So then the title was, you know, Guido's Love, and it was originally RX for a Dysfunctional Family. That was the angle in.
I
it
like
was
that,
Guido's
but I
Love.
like that.
Yeah, RX for a Dysfunctional Family. But that was perceived as a little bit dark. And so then it became ways of loving and raising a family that work. But now down to creating a character. If you look at, like, writing a book is like writing a film script or writing a play. Okay? You have a character. You have to bring him to life. How are you going to do that? You have your words, the things that happen, and the style that you might utilize. I like Hemingway's style, minimalist, and that's the style that I utilized. But so, you know, you're always trying to paint pictures, and you don't really want to say what he is. The story should tell you. You see, a good story, the story tells you who he is. You're not saying he was a mean, uncaring individual, or he was loving. No, let the audience come to that conclusion from the story. And so, in this case, I was very clear in my own mind that you're right. There is a development in the maturity of Guido reflected in the style.
Yes.
So some people pick up the book and they read the first chapter and they're like, oh, this is going to be a children's story. No, that's how he looked at life when he was a little boy.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's unique. That's a hook. That's an angle. And it is engaging. And I like what you say about Hemingway's style. Because I consider myself the ADHD reader. You get me in, I'm in, but you better get me in the first couple pages, or I'm putting the book down. No, that really is the truth. And you know what I saw David doing was not so much engaging and captivating, but channeling, and that is a gift. You don't see that often.
Well, let's give some specific examples, and then I know you have a point to make, too.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But, the first scene, Morning in America, he's in bed with his wife. And he's listening to her soft, gentle... It says, Guido lay next to his wife, Vincenzo, and listened as her soft, gentle breathing accompanied the rise and fall of the cream-colored sheets. So I had this picture in my mind of, you know, when somebody's breathing at night, you don't see their chest move. You see the sheets, you know? And I like that because it was like waves of field in the fields. You see, that was my original image. And then, and that's because this will be a movie someday, and that's going to be the opening image, is fields of wheat come into the fields of the rise and fall of the breathing. That's a device, okay? So he opened his right eye. You know, like you just kind of open up one eye and you look at the person you're in love with. And he coursed his hand. It was one of these things, you know. Coursed his hand not more than half an inch from her face, following the curvature of her well-shaped brow, then touching her nose and lips with his fingertips. Touching her nose and lips. I mean, I kind of like that. See, now this is adult, okay? It starts off, he's an adult. So this is how a man is when he's with a woman. And and when he was watching her, he could not help think that it was an invasion of her privacy to touch her while she's asleep. I mean, you know, you touch somebody while they're asleep. It's kind of an invasion of privacy, but how can it be an invasion when it's your wife of 30 plus years?
Right.
It can't. It's not. It's easy as right. Okay, then, that's adult, okay? Now, this is the style when he's a kid. Okay, this is the next chapter. First chapter is one page. Morning in Fosalto, Italy. So it was morning in America, now morning in Fosalto, Italy. But now he's a little boy. He's concerned my fingers would be colder now and I might wear my hat and gloves, but not the warm coat handed down from my two brothers that I'd wear in December and January. So he's kind of thinking of the cold in his hands. And this is an interesting line. He was talking to his grandmother about being mature and getting better jobs on the farm, and she says, Guido, it's not easier work, but you must be more mature for those jobs. And then he says, what is mature? It's just a very bright question for a child to ask. What is mature? His asked, but his mama felt silent and kept feeding the fire. She couldn't answer the question. You can't answer the question as what is mature. It cannot be answered. So it's too difficult. You know, it's too long. You have to be mature to get it. So, but that's the way he is in life. You know, he can't understand this. And he goes, how can it be that rich people sleep one to a bed? How do they stay warm?
No heat.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, I'm just saying that his read on life, and then I love this line here. He had a system. Now, this is where he would lie in bed and refuse to get up and scam everybody.
Well, okay, so but is that not the story of his life? Is that not the same, you know, the same Guido that on a bet ends up in Brighton, England?
Well, yes, it's like the Cinema Paradiso character, that
right.
the little boy who's precocious, but
Beyond
that's part of him.
Wait a minute.
But very loving.
Precocious.
See, there's more love here than
Right.
Yeah.
Not conniving, precocious. There's a
Yeah.
difference.
So he had a system. First, you pretend to be asleep as the others get up. Now, you picture the others getting up out of bed. They're putting on their socks and clothes or whatever. But they begin dressing, and then Papa calls you, Mama. You hear the Papa calling, and then a small move. You make a small move. Like you're going to get up enough so the brothers see. So he scams them. They're like, oh, he's getting up. Then the two brothers go downstairs. You hear the sound of them going downstairs. And then this is the good part. You lie down again and roll the covers all around you until Papa or Teodoro come up to get you. So what a little kid does. They pretend they're going to get up, then they lie down and they go back asleep. And then his father comes up and he takes him and he goes, I'm on to you. I give it to you. You got this far. But if you don't get up, I will tickle you till you cry. And your mama won't be able to stop me. I mean it this time. You know, I mean, so these are like the images that come to a child. I'm trying to think of another child thing here. This is a great line, too, this particular one. Guido still did not understand. He had heard the man at the neighbor's house, the one who got kicked by his own mule. This is a remembrance. It's a flashback to him as a child. Whispering with his wife once and saying that Guido's father would never amount to much. And he didn't go to school. He never amounted to anything in life. Then his wife's voice stopped whispering, and she loudly said, while slapping her thigh with a spatula, there's much you could learn from a man who has a family who loves him and a wife who thinks he's God and not sons who steal like yours. He's trying to understand. I mean, what does this mean? So yeah, I mean, and then this dear Nonna. I'm writing this for my third grade class. I hope my teacher likes it. Every morning I get up and feed. I mean, so this is childlike. It's the way a child looks at life. They see things, no context. See? They see things, if there's no context because they don't have enough experience yet. But yeah, it starts off that way. And then he changes. As he gets more mature, the style matures. So by the end, it's a mature person.
But, you know, to me, there would be no opportunity to approach this story the way that you have if it weren't for the relationship.
Well, it's
There's
chronological approach, of course. But what do you mean relationship?
Between you and Guido, the time, the investment, the relationship.
The foundation is only as strong as the foundation stones. If you haven't
Right.
done like a novel, if you or a movie
No,
script,
I
if you haven't done your
understand.
research, you have no body
This
of
is
intuitive
beyond-
strength to
this
move
is
forward
beyond
from.
research, though.
5 years was excessive. You know, I didn't really realize how terrible the process was until it was done, and I saw my notes, and they were this thick, and I was like, you know, like, what am I going to... Because we didn't write anything for 2 years. It was just interviews.
Right.
Over and over
Well,
and
and
over.
this is not fiction.
See, I could be Guido. I'm not kidding.
No, I understand.
I could be him. I could
That's
pretend.
when I say
All
you
right, let's
channel-
pretend right now. I'll be you, and
No
you're
way.
me.
No
You ask
way.
me a question, and I'll answer it because I can be Guido at this
Because
point.
you
Go
cannot,
ahead.
you cannot speak broken English. How can you be?
Oh, yes, I can speak at a broken English. I can do that.
No.
I can do that.
We're
Go ahead and ask me a
We're
question.
not getting on that.
Come on,
right?
ask me
There
a
we
question. All right.
How do you pronounce your name?
Cornacchione.
are. See, you got it.
Cornacchione.
You just got him.
Cornacchione.
Cornacchione.
See,
Okay, everybody needs a little help. Everybody, don't be so quick to judge. Okay, Cornacchione. Cornacchione. Let's try it again. What is it?
My name is Guido Cornacchione.
My name is Guido Cornacchione.
He
Guido,
got it. He got it.
Guido Cornacchione.
Only with your coaching.
See, I can be
Only
Guido.
with
Give me
your
another
coaching.
question. You could be gobbled up by Martians. I could take your job.
but you couldn't say his name.
Married to
But you
Vicenza.
couldn't say his name.
2 beautiful daughters.
That's what
2
the-
kids, grandkids, a
see?
beautiful home. I got it made.
Don't
This is a
forget-
great life.
That's
Hey,
another book.
Don't
though.
forget the guy. Don't forget my boys. They'd be upset.
Right.
You said
I
two
said
beautiful
the
daughters.
words. I said beautiful sons.
Oh, I
okay.
didn't hear that either.
I
I
did.
didn't hear
I
it.
didn't hear
Well,
it.
there's a hearing
I didn't
problem.
hear
So I
it.
must be older.
Something. I don't-
Hearing is a problem.
That'll be on you.
Okay, so the point is, yeah, the story, but I think you brought up a good point. You know, what is enough research? I guess you get to the point where you either have to move on because of some imperative, like production imperative, like, you know, you got to go do something,
Right.
or you get to the point where you feel you've got enough to bounce it back.
Right. So
Bounce
it's
it
the
back
story
up.
behind the story. That's what I'm getting at, and that's what.
Oh, the
it
story
kind of-
behind the story, yeah.
Right.
If I might say, I really don't think that I could work with anybody else. That we could have done this because I have a full-time job. He's got business to run. And where are you gonna get someone unless you come up with a bunch of money, you know, and which I can have.
And that's why I said to him, did you want me to work on the book because I was stupid enough to do it? Or because I was smart enough to do it? And when I asked him the question, which was only a couple of weeks ago, his mind was moving, and he said, smart enough?
Oh, I like that.
Smart enough? And, you know, and his wife looks at him, you know, and I'm just kidding.
No, you did, but I got
Yeah.
the right answer.
So how
There
did
was a
you-
reason I wrote the book. There was a reason.
Which
is I had a loving family in some ways, but I did not have what he had. It was there. My mother was extremely ill when I was a child. She had problems, very big problems, and we didn't have this experience. So for me, it was a learning experience, a personal learning experience. So, you know, I learned about love. I learned about family. I learned about things that were not part of my personal experience. My mother was a schizophrenic who was a drug addict. Now, I loved her, and she was always nice to me. We only had one argument in life. Okay, even though she was out of it. And that was about something I don't even remember. But for 3 days we didn't talk, but I tried to be nice to her, just to bug her. And she finally says to me, I quit. You know, I'm not going to be mad at you anymore. But she was a writer. And we would spend time reading books and talking about them. But to me, it was like a chance to open, to heal, a chance to learn, to heal, to become more, and to learn more about love. Because any guy that doesn't learn about love is stupid. Because Love is a
Maybe
skill.
not so
Love
much
is a skill.
stupid, but severely lacking.
Well, at least
You
handicapped.
know, yes, that's
Handicapped.
a good, absolutely.
Because you get what you give. If you do not know how to love, you probably won't get it back. So for me personally, there was an agenda. And I never discussed this with him. I don't think he ever knew anything about my life. Did I ever talk to him about my life? I've never talked
David,
about it.
see that to me is what is most touching. I feel unprofessional because I'm getting choked up, but this is a gift.
Well, it is. And so for me, I mean, if somebody reads this book and they go, oh, I've learned something about life that maybe... I mean, let's put it this way. As an artist, what do? That which is important. You decide what in life is worth reflecting with the spirit that you have and the time you have on the planet. That's what you do. And you say, okay, this story I could tell, but I don't see the worth. Too much violence. This story is a good story to tell, but I don't see the lesson. But you find something that's a gift to the world. You find something that you think could make life better for others, and you do that. And that's something that, you know, you get to be poor doing. I mean, you know, it's a hard road to be an artist in the sense that you don't make a lot of money all the time. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But you move forward with a gift. And so if somebody gets the sense that there's a gift here, it's because there was a gift for me. And I was thus able to share it with others.
And you know, that brings me back to the story of the satchel, because your mom, it was a sacrifice for her to, for you to leave. And so, you know, you are passing on this gift to people like David to be able to tell that story. I mean, and I don't know where it comes from before her, before your mother, but this, you know, it's this huge trickle down thing, and it would be lost if you were not able to share it.
See, the other thing that I should mention is today...
Well, let's read this, because, I mean, the audience is going to love a little bit of reading. Let me read this section, because you were the one that said this is the book. Explain that to us.
Well, to me, I felt like I was right there, you know, in the room when your mom presented you with this satchel. I don't know if it was hidden in your luggage or how it was presented. It's not...
You know, it's a small suitcase. I didn't have
Okay,
much-
well, let me
didn't
get
have
into
much
this.
clothes.
This is from the
Much clothes to
chapter,
carry.
The Courting of Vicenza, Part 1, which is on
Right,
page
right.
77. It might change in the final book. I want to read this. In this particular context, he is at school, in Akron Institute, where he's learning English.
Right.
And he sees this girl he kind of likes. And another, you know, moment where there's an aside and a memory. And after I read this, I'm going to ask you what you liked about it, because this was the one that you really liked a lot. Just to, okay, let's see here. So it starts off, he's got this English book with a smashed corner. So his one English book had a smashed corner and purplish stain on the side, but this was no problem for a boy who'd made do on a farm where improvisation was the daily chant. I mean, you know, he takes a pair of goggles, puts some holes on it, puts it on a cat's head, and the guy can do anything, and I don't complain, it's free. Pretty much summed up his feelings. So he had his book, that means the book that I just described.
Right.
And his small leather packet. His mother has made for him before he left Italy. And again, understand, we never discussed the packet. This was all imaginary. I called him up and it ended up being true. So this is like some
I
weird...
didn't know that. Okay, I did
This
not know
was
that.
never
I was
discussed in
walking
our
in on
notes.
that story.
No hint of it of any kind. I sat at home and pictured a way to tell this story. I made this up.
Well-
I called him up and it ended up being true. That's a spooky story, but that's what
It
happened.
is.
But here's what's said.
Can I just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I might have told him a year ago, and I forgot. But he keeps saying, no, you never told me. I said, well, how could you know?
Well, I called him because I made it up, and I said, did she ever give you something? Like, you know? And he goes, yeah, but this is the story, and then we'll come back to that. Okay. So he had his book and his small leather packet his mother had made for him before he left Italy. He opened the leather packet made of soft reddish leather and touched the items she'd given him. So you get the satchel in the hand and touches these items. Okay. A stone from the farm. Some soil and what had been a miniature perfume bottle of his mother's. A very little bottle. Little tiny. A leaf which had already started to crumble. You know, beauty fades and the leaf is crumbling. A piece of candy. Now, what's a piece of candy doing there? And her letter. All this was made up. It ended up being true. But I don't know about if the candy and all that was perfect, but he opened it, which is the letter, and read again what he'd read every day since coming to America. So this guy carries around this packet. And every day he opens it up. And he opens up this worn letter that's starting to come apart. My dearest, and I'll say it like your mom said it. And I made this up. My dearest and most beloved son Guido, you are not coming back. I know you think you're coming back. But the world is bigger for you than for us. I love that line. The world is bigger for you than for us. The stone is to remind you how hard it was here, so you don't get homesick. See, that was back-breaking work. Back-breaking work. The dirt to remind you of the smell of your roots. Soil has smell. A leaf to remember there is beauty here, beauty. And a piece of candy to remind you that in the midst of life's sorrows and sadness, there is sweetness. Seek and find the sweetness. Now that's the lines that you liked best.
That's poetic, and I believed it. I didn't believe that it was made up. I was buying it because it wasn't over the top.
Well,
It wasn't a self-conscious moment as an author, and to me, that's the gift of the mother. And when you tell me this story about not having that conversation, I believe your mother is here too.
now it's time to joke.
Now you're getting choked up. I know.
Yeah, she didn't say exactly the same words, but was just about like that. She said that the world is bigger for you. I need to figure out.
Now, is it possible that her spirit spoke? Let me give you an example. Those who write about the Holocaust, I believe their spirits touch them.
I do.
The suffering, the prayers, they're still in the universe. Okay? His mother said the world is bigger for you than for us. I called him to tell him this
story.
to see if there was any chance it ever happened. So you tell me, was that his mother's spirit
Yes.
speaking through me? Or what was that? I don't know, but I know this. It's a beautiful story to me. Okay, you never know as an author whether it's a beautiful story to somebody else. You don't. You only know is it a beautiful story. But to me, I liked her a lot. She was a great character in my mind.
Right.
I need to mention that if it was today, it wouldn't be as hard because today we have the world in our hand. You want to go to Italy, as long as you have the money, you fly, you're there the next day. Those days, when someone left, you might not never see them again. I mean, you leave probably 20 years because you come with the boat, you need the money. So it was harder yet because your son leaves, and who knows if and when you're going to see him again. So that's,
She knew the sacrifice she was making was the sacrifice of losing you was going to end up being better
but she
for
was
you.
more concerned
About you.
to find what I should go find,
Well,
opposed to keep
Yeah.
there.
But see, where does Guido's love start? With his mother's love for him. And the grandmother's
Right.
love for him.
Right.
Very important point. She rubs his ears in the beginning and she says, you're the smart one. You're going to go someplace. You're the beautiful child, which they say to everybody. A grandmother says this thing to every child. Okay, they don't single them out. But it was their love for him that scooted him forward to be able to get him where he got.
Well, I remember having this conversation with you, David, and one of the things that stood out to me, and I have not read the book, but I saw the movie, The Help, and the nanny says to the little girl, who really, in essence, her mom is absent in many ways, and she said, "You is kind, you is smart, you is important." And that's a blessing. And we, in our culture, people don't do that much anymore. But that has a root in very many cultures, and what your mother did was a huge blessing on your life.
We have a thing that a lot of people should really think about. We're so eager to bash someone, complain, but when they do good, we don't praise them. And that's really a bad thing. Because a kid, if he does this great thing, you don't have to submit all the papers. It's a good job. you know how good that kid feels. They said a good job. And instead, what's the matter with you? Stupid. Don't you do this and that? It's just not the way of approaching kids. It's bad because, trust me, and that's what I've been telling clients for many, many years. When they come, oh, my kids, and then about these kids today and this and that. It's like they blame everything on the kids.
Mm.
And I keep saying, you don't gonna like this, but in my view, and 98% of the problem are the parents, not the kids. But you gotta start young. You gotta start young. Kids understand more than we think do.
Yes, they do.
As a 2 years old, year and a half old, they know. And plus, they see what you do.
Yes, they do.
I mean, I can tell you one time, a lady drove from Kenton to bring the daughter here for me to cut your hair. Now, I can see if the kid is afraid of getting a haircut. It's just this fear thing. I can understand that. But it wasn't that. It was just she was spoiled because the parents let her be spoiled by that. She was over here, come on, Stanley. No, I'm not getting a haircut. It wasn't for me to force her to get a haircut. Boy, you promised me, honey. You promised me. It went on for 15 minutes. They left without a haircut. And, you know, she said, why do I need to do this? I said, you know what? I wouldn't say you're too late, but I mean, where's the parents' authority? I would say, what would you do? Sit down and get your haircut. But I probably wouldn't have had to say that if I had talked and make kids understand earlier.
Right.
Talk to them when you go over there. I have to mention this. This is very important. There's a buffet on State Road called Cathedral Tomorrow. So when the kids were all below 8, we were talking about 40 years ago, you could eat for free. The kids under 8 ate for free. The adults, $3.50 each. So with $7, the 6 of us could eat. But the catch was, they tried to sell you a pop to the kids. The kids come in free, so on. So we give them a lesson ahead of time. Look, I'm going to take you to the buffet because they love to go over there. But the trick is, they come and say, would you like a pop? And it's no good for us to say, no, you cannot have a pop. So he said, we'll take you over there, but when the lady comes and asks you, doesn't that need to come from us, from you and your mom? You tell them, no, water is fine. And then it became really funny because she would say, honey, what would you like? No, water's fine. How about you? Water's fine. How about you? Water's fine. But yet, if we hadn't talked and explained to them, you were getting this treat, but don't screw her up.
Right.
And it's communication. I'm telling you, communication with the kids, wife and husband, friends. So many times things are misunderstood.
Yes.
And then, how gossips, this other one. That's probably one thing I should mention. This is very, very important. When I tell my relatives or anybody, if you were to tell me, hey, Guido, did you hear what, I heard said this about you? And I said, well, how do you know that? Because if it's something, I'm going to confront that person, and I'm going to say, Joe said you said this. So make sure that if you tell me something, that so-and-so said something about me, make sure it's the truth. Because then Joe is going to confront you. Because people make these times, they just love, story and make up things. And that's bad. So, all these things creates more problems in people's family.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a situation, bring it up, clear it out of the way, and move on.
Agreed. Life lesson from Guido Cornacchione.
Say it one more time, Dave.
Guido Cornacchione.
Bravo!
So I want to hear this story about how David, first of all, how did you hear about Guido, find out about him as a hairdresser, and the whole beginning of getting to know each other?
Want me to tell him? I don't remember.
I don't. Go ahead.
He stopped by because he was working for a radio company. He was selling radio ads.
No, it was a newspaper for a teeny newspaper.
Or a
The
newspaper.
Village Views.
But was something about putting an ad, you know,
Mhm.
new business and stuff. And that's how he actually became a client. That time, he had a little bit more hair.
Yeah, a little more, because I was, you know, I had to go there. I'm like, what? But I knew you when he had
Well,
more hair.
you know, God took half and I helped him out with the other half.
Oh, okay.
And so we kind of hit it off. And he done different things. He was taking pictures after a while, photography.
Photography.
Went from what, but we pretty much see him haircuts and chat and laugh and tell stories.
One of the things that we could talk a little bit about is the construction of the book. You know, we ended up deciding to self-publish this book at this point. And while the other books that I've done were done by mainstream publishers, we didn't even approach them with this book. And one of the reasons is the way it was crafted. The first part of the book is life story, and it's like, you know, his life
Right.
from when he's a little boy around 6, carrying through to the day that he marries Vincenza, his wife. So we see Italy, the fields, working in the fields, working on the farm, all those little anecdotes, and then he goes to work on a little bigger farm, and you love that apple story, which we can talk about, you know, a little bit about, you know, what happens there. Then he moves to England and is the chef, and then comes to the United States, and we get a taste of that. We didn't really cover in the book what happens from the day that he was married until now.
Except in the stories that are reflected by the
Yeah,
family,
right,
and maybe some of the
and there's
life
some anecdotes,
lessons.
but it kind of ended
But it's
there.
interesting, yes.
And then you have this life lessons section,
Right.
which are very specific lessons. So the story beats are bumpity bump, bump, which in other words, it's set up information and then what you learn. Da-da-da-da, what the lesson is. That's the structure. Then you get the next step in the book, or the next grouping would be like recipes, okay, and then hair care tips. So I kind of figured that, is that Meredith? No. I kind of figured that a standard publisher would say there's 5 books. Which one do you want? And then they'd make me flesh out the section that we decided on. But I didn't want to do that. You know, I really wanted, you know, the book to have all the parts. So that's why, one of the reasons that we decided to self-publish the book through Amazon and their company that they are affiliated with.
Well, and one of the things that I did find interesting, and we did touch on, was, you know, it wasn't necessarily a culmination of life experience. At the point where you're maybe 19 and you're living with the other family, and you are talking to the, I guess it was an apple wholesaler.
Yeah.
Right, and so, you know, you question the wisdom in.
Well, if I can answer that way, you have to do what you have to do. My step from our little village to go work on another farm, it's almost like, oh, what's the big deal? But they had equipment. I had heard they had tractors, and plus, I had to figure it many times that when we worked the field by hands, you know, the 6 of us, and plus, the owner of the land would take half the deal. I used to think, man, we'd be better off working for somebody just for the food. That day they feed us, we'll work and go home. Because that wasn't going to produce not even enough for the food, what we did that day. But today, it would be very hard for people from here to really visualize that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you figure you do everything with this hoe, you know. And then you do this like in November, December. In the spring, there's already some weeds, and then you go how to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to throw the weed, and then you have to rake it with the rake, and then you have to pull the weeds, and then you have to harvest, and then the guy who owns the land comes, he takes half, and you take half.
But it's a different mentality, and you called it out, and like it's not better.
So I thought, you
it
know
looks
what, I'd be
but
better
it's
off
not better.
to go work there, get $15 a month, $15 a month, food and lodging, and one weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I didn't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Go to a movie. We didn't have a movie together. I probably should mention. until I was 15, we did not have electricity.
Wow.
That's why the story of the group that we formed, they have no mics, because we had no electricity.
I like that too. You were always an entrepreneur and a showman, and I wonder how you aren't able to charge double because you're saving all your customers from therapy.